All right. Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is our third Explorers edition. My name is Ben, and I'll be hosting our little chats today. So in each of these sessions, what we're aiming to do is really bring the people and the land that are behind all of your coffees just that little bit closer. We obviously all love the taste and the aromas of coffee, but we think that little bit more information about the journey from the farm and the cherry to your cup and the people who are behind it really adds a whole nother level of appreciation that kind of is really enjoyable for us. So today I'm really excited to bring you another really exciting exploration as we dive into the work from the Zukuka Bora coffee company based out of Mt Elgon in Uganda. We're lucky enough to be joined by a couple of folks who have got some first-hand experience to share with us. So first up, we've got a fellow Victorian, Mr. Sam Keck from Commonfolk Coffee Roasters down in Victoria. And he's seen the Zukuka Bora project emerge over multiple visits to Uganda. So welcome and thanks for joining us, Sam.
No worries, it's a pleasure to be here. Hi everyone, my name's Sam. I'm founder and general manager of Commonfolk Coffee Company on the beautiful Mornington Peninsula. And we've partnered with and helped fund the Zukuka Bora project since its inception. So very excited about joining the Five Senses event tonight and can't wait to drink some amazing coffee.
Yeah, it's great to have you on board. And we're also very excited to be joined live from Uganda. We have Mr. Dave Bishop and Ivan Kauka. I think I pronounced your name incorrectly there, Ivan, but forgive me on that one. And they are dialing in direct from, I think they're in Mbale in Uganda. And so Dave is the operations director for Zukuka Bora, and Ivan is his right-hand man as operations manager. So welcome, Dave and Ivan. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you very much. I'm also very happy to see you all. I'm very happy. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone, and good morning from a beautiful, sunny, hot Uganda.
We're all sitting here in the cold and certainly in the dark on the east coast. So we're looking at that sunshine streaming in very jealously there. We're all going to be keeping our fingers crossed that this amazing connection to Uganda lives through the presentation. But Sam, just a heads up, you will be the backstop and might be having to answer and paint a picture for all of us. And look, lastly, but certainly not least, big thanks to Nicole, who is our producer behind the scenes. She'll be answering any of the questions and making sure that all of our video and things run smoothly. So thank you, Nicole, and hello.
Hey, everyone.
She's staying secret and silent in the background. For all of you who ordered our little Explorers packs, which should have come last week, thanks very much to that one. But if you did miss out, the Wunale and the Tangwen are both being roasted currently, so you can grab those as single origins, and the Kabwaya will be released in the next couple of weeks. So don't stress you haven't kind of missed out on these, or even if you just want to top up, I've had a few comments already coming through going, 100 grams was not enough. So that's a great result to have. So for this session, rather than kind of going through a traditional cupping process, which can be a little bit time consuming and takes away from our opportunity just to have a chat about this, we've gone ahead and just brewed these up as filter coffees. So I've kind of got all three of these pre-prepped. And I think Sam's got the same over there. I think Dave and Ivan have got a cup of something in front of them. Oh yes, they have. So at home, if you'd like to do a traditional cupping, by all means, go for it. Rich and Nicole can probably give you a few pointers in the chat section, or just brew something up. Or given the time of day it is, if you have another alternative beverage in hand, that probably won't be a bad idea either. Relax and enjoy the chats.
Thank you.
All right. So let's get into it. So to kind of kick things off, we are talking Uganda here. And let's situate that. Like Ivan, we were talking earlier, like Australian coffee drinkers might not have that great an idea of really where Uganda is. It's kind of the coffees have come in and out of the scene in Australia over the past decade or so. And to be honest, not all of it's kind of been really that great quality. Luckily, this stuff is. So can you just help us wrap our heads around, like, where is Uganda in relation to the world and kind of what is its situation there?
Thank you very much. Uganda is born in East Africa. It's a landlocked country, being neighbored with countries like Kenya, Southern Sudan, we have Rwanda, and Democratic Republic of Congo, which is DRC. Uganda gained its independence in 1962, and its population is 45 million. Due to its double impact years, very young population, and on Earth, let me say that. Its capital city is Kampala. Uganda generally has got, it's well known as a country of Robusta, but there are specific two areas well known for for Arabica coffee, and that is the far west of Uganda, mountain on Rwenzori Mountains. That's where specifically it's grown, and here in the east, specific on Mount Elgon, on Mt Elgon areas, and that's where we are found.
There's this amazing drone footage that Dave and Ivan shot through to us of the Wanale Ridge region. So as we kind of talked about there, and Ivan was recapping, it's kind of surrounded by all these other great East African producers, and this is showing just a little bit of the landscape there. And I know that, like, you know, traveling to East Africa is never a short journey. I've kind of been lucky enough to make that trek a couple of times. But like Sam, you've actually been there a number of different times. What was the kind of the journey like to get from Melbourne to Uganda, and what did it all look like when you kind of finally landed there and were on the ground?
Yeah, well, Commonfolk's had a connection with Uganda for 8 years, and in particular Zukuka Bora for about 5, and I've been visiting every year, I think, bar one, since 2015. And genuinely, I think sometimes it feels more like home than Australia does. Certainly when it's freezing cold in the middle of winter in Melbourne, you know, I'm a bit jealous of Dave and Ivan. But it's a 30-hour trek from where we are realistically, and it can be even longer depending on the joining flights. So you've got to jump on a plane from Melbourne. We usually rendezvous through the Middle East, and sometimes you've got to go then from Kenya to Entebbe, which is Uganda's international airport. And when you fly in over Lake Victoria, which is the birthplace of the River Nile. And the first thing you notice is just how lush and green I think everything is. They call Uganda the pearl of Africa, but I think it's also the salad bowl of Africa. If you want something to grow, just plant it in Uganda and it will grow. And then to get to Mbale from Entebbe is another day's drive. So you've got to start with what may be the worst stretch of highway in the world when it comes to traffic. So that's between Entebbe and the capital, Kampala. And then you head off east through forests, tea plantations, swampland, savanna, and you kind of see this silhouette of this huge mountain, Mt Elgon, shrouded in cloud, just burst up from the plains and really impose itself onto the landscape. It's the oldest extinct volcano in Africa, and it's the only mountain in the region, so it really does stand out. And then when you're on the mountain, the slopes are dotted with little villages, farming communities, all intermingled with rivers and waterfalls, all cascading down the slopes. It's most of the communities back directly onto the national park, which is just super lush tropical forest. So it's quite literally like the scene from Lion King where Simba meets Timon and Pumbaa, and there's just this like almost like fantastical land. That's basically Mt Elgon. It's also it's a bit of a microclimate, and temperatures drop, you know, over 10 degrees up on the mountain compared to down on the plains. And this kind of makes it perfect for producing really high quality Arabica, slow ripening, really complex cup. And you're genuinely transfixed by the beauty, but on the same hand, it really hits home the difficulties faced by the indigenous population on the mountain. It's not uncommon for the whole mountain to be cut off for days from the rest of the community, just due to poorly maintained roads, you know, literally disintegrating, or being totally covered by landslides and floods. So it's a beautiful but harsh environment.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely kind of resonate with a lot of those descriptions, and even just that sense of the feeling that, you know, I don't know, Dave and Ivan, you live this all the time, so it's like completely norm. It's the norm for you, but certainly there's something about being jam-packed onto a very small airplane seat for many, many hours that when you arrive at Origin, the excitement and the kind of expanse, it just kind of feels like all of the smells and the sounds and the sights are kind of ramped up in Technicolor. So it's a pretty amazing scene to kind of to travel to, and yeah, as we saw in a couple of those quick photos that we're flicking through as well, some very dramatic landscapes, beautiful stuff. All right, well, now that we've kind of got a little bit of a situation of where we are, like in terms of geography, you know, Uganda is sitting there in East Africa. It's surrounded by all these amazing coffee growing regions and countries: Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Burundi, and so on, Rwanda, coffee, you know, areas that we all really celebrate. Let's have a look at the coffees that we've actually got in front of us. So there's 3 coffees in this pack that are from the team here at Zukuka Bora. The first up is the Wanale AA, and this is from the Bukanakwa Farmers Group. It's a washed lot, and as I said, I've kind of brewed up a little bit of this, so we'll be drinking a little bit at 6 o'clock in the evening here to keep us going. One of the big things that kind of jumped out at me when I was brewing this up is that on the aroma, it's just a really sweet and kind of satisfying smell. It's not super complex, but it's just really welcoming and kind of a satisfying aroma. When it's hot, the really great thing that we found about this is this beautiful, juicy kind of acidity to it. And we've described it as like a fresh orange juice kind of acidity, which I think is a nice descriptor for both that mouth-watering juiciness that you get, but also the really rounded sweetness in there. And we'll see how it cools a little bit as we chat through. But I was also getting some really nice honeycomb out of this. So almost that beautiful kind of slightly bittersweet kind of honeycomb chocolate style, like the candy, the lolly of honeycomb that's kind of coming through. So a really pleasing, very clean cup. Next up, we've got the Tangwen. This is from the Tangwen Farmers Group, and it's a natural process lot. So again, it's pretty high altitude up there on Mt Elgon. It's 1900 meters above sea level. And this one, you can smell immediately when you open the bag. The beans are just kind of, you know, really vibrant kind of aromas in there. Really quite dense kind of fruit aromatics. And in the cup, it's tasting very similar. So to me, this is like, there's a brand of old gold chocolate. I'm sure we've all seen it around. It's been around for quite a while. I don't know if it's in the UK as well, Dave, but old gold chocolate, there's a rum and raisin version. So it's dark chocolate, really kind of rich, boozy kind of characteristic to it. And that's what hits me first with this. It's a very rich coffee, the Tangwen, but very consistent as well. And on the back end, we're kind of getting a little bit of almost, we've kind of mentioned tropical fruits in there. And for me, that's coming out like as a bit more of like a papaya style kind of fruit. So nothing really bright and tangy, but something that's like quite dense again. Really, yeah, very delicious coffee. And last up, we've got the Kabuya. Now this lot is from actually from 2 specific farmers within the Tangwen kind of farmers group and the region there. And this one is like, the 2 farmers are Patrick Nabukisa and Annette Namataka. These 2 farmers have done something a little bit unique with this lot and done an anaerobic ferment. And we'll talk a little bit more about both those crew, which sounds like a pretty interesting story, and the process that they did. But in terms of the cup, this one kind of smells and starts off quite similar to the Tangwen, the natural lot. So you're getting a lot of fruit kind of coming out, but it's a little bit denser. And then in the cup, it's actually a really big coffee. That's the thing that grabs me kind of immediately. Really quite intense. We've kind of described it as having kind of a rich dark chocolate and then a kind of a baked orange characteristic. And what I love about that is it's kind of referential to that fresh juicy OJ that we had on the Wanale, but it's kind of intensified and really kind of like that pleasant, bitter kind of sweet characteristic. But when I say bitter, it's not like your traditional espresso bitterness. It's just like a pleasant kind of counterpoint to all of that sweet. So 3 really distinctive coffees. Hope you're all enjoying those at home, or maybe did a little bit earlier in the day. You know, Sam, we sent a pack to you, but you've been tasting harvests out of Zukuka Bora for a number of years. How do these profiles kind of stack up or differ from what you were experiencing with previous harvests?
Yeah, cheers, Ben. And I think probably initially it's worth sharing that in Uganda and even more broadly in an East African context, commodity prices don't cut the mustard. So production's generally pretty rudimentary and labour intensive. So there's a really high human cost to production. It means there's no like large scale machine harvesters and advanced agricultural techniques. It's basically like a family and their, you know, like community picking the cherry by hand. And so this sort of framed the conversation we had with the team behind Zukuka when we first discussed supporting their coffee company. We knew it was specialty or bust. So we knew we had to hit coffees that you guys are enjoying right now, that sort of cupping score to really make it viable and fetch the prices that we could, that would make the community's lives better and the coffee a sustainable industry. So it's interesting to reflect on previous harvests and the quality of those compared to these 3 coffees. Most of the Arabica coming off Mt Elgon is in itself really interesting because it's predominantly a varietal called SL14 that's really traditionally Ugandan. It's quite high yielding and disease resistant, but I've heard it being accused of being maybe a little bit boring. So medium body, medium sweetness, low to medium acidity, you know, think low grade Brazil, Colombia kind of hybrid, but not these coffees. And that's because of, I guess, the work that the Zukuka Bora team's been putting in. So initially the first harvest that they managed to invest in was from their own demonstration farm. I think it was only about 200 kilos. And it was pretty reflective of traditional Ugandan coffee. But every harvest since then, ZB's been steadily improving the processing techniques and cherry selection. And I think that that's led to, you know, the most recent experiments with anaerobic fermentation and just natural fermentation that have, I think we've seen a dramatic improvement in cup quality. So I personally find that Zukuka Bora's coffees, and I think all 3 of these have some really distinct flavours that separate them from other coffees. In particular, I get an unusual sort of sweet pastry characteristic, which I think to reflect on the papaya you were talking about, Ben, it's a very dense flavour. It's not sparkling tropical fruits. It's like a big fruit salad punch, really concentrated, almost like pulpy in the texture as well. And the naturals both definitely give me, you know, a Christmas cake sort of dried fruit, fortified wine sort of flavour. I would say compared to previous harvests, most of the coffees are cupping, you know, upwards of more than 5 points what they were when Zukuka Bora started, and some of them even more. So it's pretty exciting where these are heading, and I'm definitely enjoying it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to get that reflection, and I'm sure Dave and Ivan have been tracking along kind of year on year, tasting as well. But I think like some of those little videos we played there were kind of maybe almost gave that indication of where some of those influences of quality were coming from as well. There was a lot of kind of floating of the cherries in the bucket there, skimming off kind of underripes and kind of anything else that's not right, and a really nice shallow layer of the natural process on the drying tables. You know, so we've talked a little bit about the flavour side of it, but we kind of mentioned 2 different farmers groups here, the Bukanakwa farmers group and the Tangwin. Ivan or Dave, are you able to kind of give us a little bit more information about who are the people who are behind this and what's kind of the process that brought these particular lots to life?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, yeah, thanks to Sam and to Ben. It's so fun actually seeing these coffees being enjoyed. You know, I hopefully we can give you a picture of the work that goes into making these coffees special. The Bukanakwa coffee is a very special coffee. Bukanakwa is by far and away our most remote farming group, and it's very, very difficult to reach. And yet it's worth it. So just to give you a picture, Bukanakwa is 2,100 meters now above sea level. And to get the coffee down from the buying station up at Buchanaqua down to our washing station requires an hour's walk. And as you can see in the pictures, the coffee will be carried on the head, sometimes 60 to 80 kilos. And that will be carried down, as you can see, down to our washing station and processed from there. It's been an exciting place to work, despite the kind of logistical challenges and the sliding in the mud that often happens whenever we go there. But the response from the community has been really positive. We have a group of about 80 farmers up there, and I think because of the remote location, many of them had not really benefited from coffee because they were having to sell their coffee to middlemen and just losing that direct connection to buyers. So us coming in has been really met with huge enthusiasm. And you can just tell, I mean, we buy, particularly on an afternoon, you might find 5 tons of cherry being delivered just in an afternoon. Such is the enthusiasm. And then that will be carried down to Wanalo. So that's Buchanaqua. It's a stunning place. Coming on to the Tangwen and the Kabweya, they both come from the Sipi Falls region. Sipi Falls is probably our most famous tourist attraction here in eastern Uganda. It's a set of 3 beautiful waterfalls, and it's also well known for producing some of Uganda's top marathon and long distance runners. So for those of you that follow athletics, a lot of Ugandan's champions come from this area, owing again to the high altitude and the very mountainous and rugged terrain. I certainly couldn't run much more than a few hundred meters, but maybe I should get into training. But what's interesting about Sipi is that, and which is where these coffees are from, is that perhaps of anywhere in Uganda, there's a more perhaps commercial understanding of coffee. You might find people look after their coffee a little bit better. We might find much bigger gardens, high yielding coffee. We find the SL28 varietal, which was introduced to the area from neighbouring Kenya. And yeah, it's just a really beautiful area. I mean, when I say kind of commercial farming, I do need to kind of make sure that the picture is right in that yeah, Ugandan coffee farmers, wherever they're located, very much diversifying their crops. So they will grow coffee absolutely alongside maize, beans, bananas, and you won't find those nice, neat rows of coffee that you might find in other coffee-producing countries. So yeah, we have the Tangwen, which is a naturally processed coffee. I would say up until a couple of years ago here, particularly on Mt Elgon, natural coffees were almost unheard of. In fact, when we took our natural coffees for milling a couple of seasons ago, there was quite a bit of surprise at the milling factory in that they were quite confused as to why we were bringing this so-called dirty coffee. You know, people are used to seeing the clean, washed coffee. Yeah. But you know, I think the rewards are there, because I think if a natural done well, particularly at altitude and with the very kind of slow drying conditions, can actually produce a very exciting coffee and can really sort of lift the profile of it. So that's the Tangwen. And then the Kabweya, I believe we have a video lined up from our field supervisor in Sipi, and he'll explain in a bit more detail about how we go about that special extended fermentation process. So over to you, Kenneth.
To explain to you one of the best experiments we are doing here at Zukuka Bora. In this process, we buy coffee, real red cherries, then we carry it, we put inside here the tank for 60 hours. That's roughly 2.5 days. Then after moving it here, after those days, you find that when we are moving, you find some sticky thing. So we give it a small bath, or we flash water on it, then we dry from African raised beds for the period when it's ready for packing. So you find that this process is somehow interesting, whereby you find farmers saying, this is crazy, but still, it is one of the best processes we are making here at Zukuka Bora Coffee Company. We love the coffee make, we love everything it gives out.
So yeah, I hope you picked up some of that, but you have to excuse Sipi Falls in the background for making a racket. Yeah, I think the interesting thing about the whole Kaboya extended fermentation was the reactions from farmers around. I think most times the reactions we get on the mountain that we are a little bit crazy, and I think this just reinforced that view. Yes, it was 60 hours in a drum, dry ferment of the cherries, and then it was brought out and dried very slowly on raised beds. And I think that's what produces those very interesting flavors. But I think the interesting thing was the reactions from the farmers, but also right through the milling process and even through to export when the coffee was being checked for export. I think even the coffee authorities were quite confused and were sort of wondering what kind of magic we had done to make the coffee smell like that.
Yeah, I think it's always pretty exciting to explore these things as coffee geek professionals, but often the reality of implementing them and kind of getting people to wrap their heads around a different way of doing things can take a little bit of time. But yeah, as kind of Dave mentioned there, I guess just to clarify for everyone, this is a really great opportunity for you all to taste kind of side by side how processing can really influence things, because both the Tanguan and the Kaboya lots that you've got in this pack are both from a very, they're the same region of coffee. Patrick and Annette got, as Dave said, pretty excited about the opportunity to try something different. And so instead of just the natural process where the cherries are dried out in the sun on raised beds for a while and turned as the whole cherry, with the anaerobic ferment, they're put in that drum, contained there for I think 60 hours was around the time, and without the oxygen present, or certainly not much oxygen, you get a slightly concentrated and different style of fermentation. So it's really cool to be able to taste those side by side. It's fun to, and the fact that it actually tastes great is I'm sure that there are many experiments out there that weren't quite as tasty, but this definitely came off. Cool. And I mean, look, to be honest, like these are, as I think Sam mentioned up front as well, these are some of the best Ugandans that I've tasted in a long time, and certainly some of the most kind of traceable in terms of how they came to life. But I guess it's kind of pretty interesting to reflect on that, because Dave, like, these coffees, don't miraculously just appear, or Zukuka Bora didn't just miraculously appear. In some ways, they're kind of built on the back of quite a long history in Uganda, of coffee production. And then more recently with Zukuka Bora kind of being launched. And that was what was really interesting for us, is learning about the activities and the drive, I guess, and the focus that the Zukuka Bora itself had. So maybe you can kind of give everyone a little bit more perspective of, what was the landscape in the Mt Elgon region in terms of coffee that Zukuka Bora kind of launched into, and then what was the formation of Zukuka Bora like?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is interesting, the story of Ugandan coffee. Looking back 30-40 years, actually Ugandan coffee had not only a good reputation externally, but within the country itself. Coffee producers were well looked after. There was a strong cooperative system that not only rewarded good picking and good processing, but also paid good prices and did a lot of good community work on the mountain, which is still referred to today, particularly by the older farmers. But over the years, I think the demand for volume grew, and I think quality was sacrificed at times. And as a result, the price dropped, and being able to secure a good price for Ugandan coffee was much more difficult. And so farmers were not basically incentivized to produce quality anymore. And so as we entered the coffee landscape in 2015, we found, I guess, quite a sad situation. We found coffee farmers, particularly on the Wanale Ridge, discouraged. They were just picking anything off the tree, getting a very, very poor price for it, often at the mercy of middlemen with no direct connection to buyers or roasters around the world, to the extent where farmers were largely turning their back on coffee altogether. We found coffee farmers literally just cutting down their own coffee trees and choosing to plant maize or matoke instead, bananas instead. So that was the landscape we came into. And just to take a step back and around how Zukuka Bora was formed, So Zukuka Bora is actually a project that was initiated by an NGO called Jenga. Jenga have been working on the mountain for around 20 years. And during that time, they've obviously spent a lot of time talking to the community, implementing programs that the community have wanted, things like clean water projects, education programs. But one of the things that kept coming up in those community discussions was like, is there anything that Jenga can do to connect us as coffee farmers to market? And I think around 2012, 2013, this was before I was here, Sam from Commonfolk came and visited Jenga and saw the landscape. And I think, I wasn't there, but in those conversations between Sam and Jenga, I think something was born, a vision was born, and that's kind of how it initiated. So I think as all good things, it started very small, with no real idea of quite how it would all turn out. And it's just been really exciting to kind of see the progress. Ivan, I wanted to see if you had anything to say on the kind of the goals that we had as Zukuka Bora.
Thank you very much, Steve. In terms of our goals, we looked at achieving, one is treating our farmers with respect. At first, truly, farmers, as Mr. Dev has already spoken, farmers were even cutting down their coffee trees, ending up to plant maize because they've been ending up being cheated. With many companies around looking out even on the country, Uganda itself, they were not treating them very well. So they ended up cutting out their trees, thinking that the best way is to plant maize. And another point is paying good price. When we say good price, it really means a lot as far as the community is concerned. They're being cheated for a long time. Many years back, these people have been cheated, and they giving their coffee a whole year without being paid. That ends up making them lose hope. But when we showed up, Zukuka Bora showed up, the price of coffee really showed up. It raised up, and they began getting the morale of planting, looking after their coffee very, very well. And another issue is paying on time. I've already spoken about it already, but the point remains that paying on time was the issue which farmers were suffering. They take their coffee, they finish 1 year before paying them. And for us, we pay on time immediately. We buy coffee, that's the time we pay. That again encouraged farmers to lean on us, to have faith in us, so to have hope in us. And that's why they're very strong together. We are very strong together with them. Another issue is employment opportunities. That's another issue which really has raised up younger people on the mountain. As you know, the mountain is it's a place where jobs which are to be paid monthly, every day, it's very rare to find them. But having got these younger people, these people on the mountain, to employ them, and even ending up giving them skills which are to support the community and even the company itself. Really, we have seen a great improvement, and they are proud to see Zukuka Bora progressing. And the issue is keeping a reputation positive. The way I can simplify it is being clear on our transactions. It will come specifically on the point of bonuses, which has been really showing up as far as this company began. Bonuses have really created another good connection between the farmers and the company of Zukuka Bora. We shall look at it in this way, whereby they are able to pay school fees for their children. And you can see in the mountain, younger people are now going to school. Looking at the time this bonus comes in, it comes in at the time when it's really so hard. I know some of you have been here, you know what I'm trying to mean about this issue of hunger, whereby people go sleep hungry without eating anything. But this money of bonus comes at the right time. It's not being ever cheated. It comes, it goes to the farmers, it's supposed to be. So truly looking at this, the goals which were created. Really, we are following them very well, and they are working for the community and the organization as Zukuka Bora is concerned.
Yeah.
We thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, just to finish up, I mean, like Ivan said, it's about the community. I think when we started this project, I guess you think coffee farmers and you think, okay, this is about coffee farmers. But actually, what we've seen is that when a business is implemented well, actually it's a ripple effect. So the coffee farmers, yes, are at the heart of it, but actually it's generating employment for the women and men that are working on the project. It's generating skills. It's even having knock-on effects on the carpentry business, the building business. And actually, it's exciting, I think, to see sort of communities actually really wake up, almost come alive through the result of a good business being placed in the heart of remote communities where there's not a lot of opportunity for what is a very young population. And so I think we've been excited to see, you know, it isn't just about coffee, it isn't just about coffee farmers. And just one final thing to say is that one of the main ambitions of Zukuka Bora was actually to provide a source of sustainable funding back to the NGO Jenga, so that as we grow and as hopefully our profits and our income grows, we're able to feed that back into Jenga, who are able then to do all the kind of much more sort of holistic development across the mountain and really just, I guess, essentially multiply the efforts that we're putting in.
Yeah. Look, it's some pretty inspiring stuff to kind of hear, and I think that's why we got so excited about kind of jumping on board. I'm sure the same for kind of Sam as well, you know, where you kind of hear about this opportunity for coffee and specialty coffee. Yes, that's like what we're all here enjoying and drinking, but like when you implement it in the way that you guys have in terms of being embedded in the community with the community kind of in mind, and even, you know, just what Ivan, you were saying, just respect, you know, respect and transparency is kind of an incredible part to it. And obviously, I think, you know, this collection of people that we've got here on this call and being able to kind of work together with other kind of roasters and other people all around the world to support that, I think is, yeah, I mean, I think it's a great thing, and I'm glad to hear that it's been growing. Yeah, so I guess, Sam, you know, Dave and Ivan have talked a little bit about like how Zukuka Bora kind of came to life, but you got there pretty early days, and you've interacted with them. What was Dave like the first time you dropped in the ground, and what was the team like when you first arrived?
Yeah, no, great question. And funnily enough, like Ivan and Dave have both commented on how it's almost so much more than just the coffee now. But I was, you know, a little young upstart roaster with a roasting company, and I wanted to get my hands on an opportunity to experiment and invest in, you know, coffee at origin. So I guess my first trip was just to see, you know, whether or not our donations that we'd been sending over were being well stewarded from a coffee perspective. And so, you know, I wanted to march in there and make sure that all the money had been allocated properly and the trees were doing well and the training programs were rolled out. I think when I first met the team, we realized that, you know, although they were super raw when it comes to coffee, they were really passionate about community development and, you know, light years ahead of anything I could kind of put together in that facet. And they actually saw coffee as Ivan pointed out, as a means to a better life for the people of the mountain. But then also, you know, for a good cup for the consumers, you know, in Australia and America and the UK and anywhere else. You know, our philosophy visiting Origin has sort of matured into one where we try and be critically aware of the role we play. So any, you know, hopes and dreams of me, you know, wielding my influence and telling the Zukuka Bora team exactly what to do, you know, petered away pretty quickly because we're only a small portion of crop to cup. We're the end portion, and obviously an important portion. We're the ones paying for the coffee. But we really wanted to make sure we weren't over-promising and under-delivering from our end, especially to the farmers who, as Ivan said, were pretty used to being ripped off. And, you know, if you say something to them, you say, oh, I'm going to buy your coffee for a good price, and then you don't do it, you know, they really do feel betrayed because your word is gospel. So, you know, pretty quickly we learned to stay humble and just really enjoy and appreciate the experience. I mean, we're not the producers. The ones really doing the magic are Dave and Ivan. And so our aim was really to foster a lasting relationship with the Zukuka Bora team and one where we wouldn't just purchase a one-off lot, but we'd go back year after year. Once we'd seen the hard work that the Zukuka Bora team were putting in and the fact that they were committed to improving the quality of coffee, we made a commitment to them to purchase their coffee, rain, hail or shine, which means that even if they struggle one season and the quality drops, we'll still purchase it and we'll find somewhere to put the coffee. We know we can still work with it, so that we benefit when the quality is really high. But there's a bit of mutual risk that allows us to really get stuck into the kind of coffee that I was originally interested in, which is, the Kobrai and the experimental fermentations and all that kind of thing. And, the exciting part is that there's so much untapped knowledge still in the community. Like Dave said, 30, 40 years ago, Uganda was genuinely at the forefront of Arabica quality coffee in the world. So when I first visited, there were a number of older farmers who kind of approached us and said, "Oh, so you're the people who want us to produce coffee like we used to." In particular, one story stands out. After a really long day of processing, the Zukuka Bora team had shut up shop, and they saw an old lady. She'd be in her 60s or 70s, approaching with a tiny bag of coffee cherries. And so instead of sending her away and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're too late," the team agreed, "Oh, I'll just take a look at the coffee." There wasn't that much, not really expecting much from the coffee itself. But when they inspected the cherry, it was genuinely the most impressive, perfect cherry they'd ever seen. Not a single defect, absolutely ripe, color uniformity. It was remarkable. And she then kind of revealed that she'd literally been waiting decades for someone to start paying attention to quality again, and of course, paying a better price. It was really humbling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great, obviously a great result. I'm sure Ivan and Dave are like, yes, we've got some great stuff coming in. But it's also, I think, it speaks a lot to that idea that, as you said, we're coffee roasters here on this side of the world. We're operating in our bubble, as it were, of kind of what we do. But really, coffee producers, and especially it sounds like in this area of Uganda with such a long history, have got like this embedded expertise of dealing with not only just turning out coffee, but working that landscape, working those seasons, understanding what's needed to do it. And I think, for us all to kind of tread a little bit respectfully as we arrive into someone else's kind of landscape is critical there. And I think that other point you made as well, Sam, about sharing risk, it's really great to hear about that initial start that you had with Zukuka Bora, because it's this idea of, Zukuka Bora were just getting started and taking on a whole heap of risk to try and begin exporting coffee and processing coffee and learning all about that and buying things and employing people. And on the other side of things, roasters who kind of take on risk by buying that coffee and supporting that. It actually ends up being this really mutually kind of rewarding relationship where you can kind of work together on things. I think talking with Dave, there's been so much that's happened over the years. I think you established in 2015, and there's been so much you've done since then. But has there been a couple of key milestones that you see have been these big jumps forward for Zukuka Bora?
Sure. I mean, Ben, you mentioned it straight away, and Sam, obviously, like one of the most exciting things I think has been the kind of partnership as we've grown, and obviously with Commonfolk and their initiative, The Cup That Counts, and then there's an organisation called the Entrust Foundation. We've been really well supported by our partners to really push probably the project along quicker than we would have done otherwise. And so starting in 2015, which feels like a lifetime ago, and I think I might have had hair back then, but I don't know where it's all gone. But it's been a ride. It's been a roller coaster. I think we just started with a demonstration plot, and actually started just with the intention of training farmers, but it became very clear that actually training was not enough. What farmers wanted was access to market, and so I guess the first milestone was 2016, where we exported 4 tons of coffee to Australia. It probably made no financial sense either for Sam or for ourselves, but it was one of those things. Let's get this journey started. And I still fondly look back to then. But from then, 2016, it's basically been a case of growing our infrastructure with the help of partners. engaging more farmers. I think 2018, the harvest previous to this, was a big step up. We exported for the first time to the UK, to America and to Australia. And it just felt that the momentum was starting to build. And then last year we exported to Korea. We had our export license for the first time. And I think it's been incremental improvement, but it's exciting. And I think we're now having over 1,000 farmers supplying coffee. Over 100 people employed during the season, and yeah, we're still at only 25 tons of green coffee. So I feel like, as much as it's been a roller coaster and it feels like a lifetime, I realise we're still at the beginning of the journey. So yeah, it's exciting, and it'd be fun to see what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's been a lot going on, and I think you know, obviously with a project like this, you know, as Ivan kind of mentioned, in terms of the really positive things of just paying people on time and paying, you know, well, and you know, treating with the community well. It's kind of this idea that the project you're wrangling is financial, it's the operations, it's community engagement, and then it's learning about coffee as well and export. So yeah, a lot going on there. Well, some exciting stuff. These coffees, Ivan, like this particular last harvest, how is that for everyone on Mt Elgon?
Thank you very much. The season was long. Cherries appeared early August, and it seemed to go off. It seemed to go off, and it ended up coming back in the month of December and January, where most of us had even lost hope. And we said, what's going on?
Right.
But it was amazing that we end up hitting our target at the end. Looking at that, first of all, encouraged us, but we remained very strong, knowing that all things would be fine. And looking at how the rains were much, and even including landslides, which almost nearly end up consuming some of our people's lives.
Yes.
Most example is Mr. Dave and Isaac. On that same day before my wedding took place, they were in a mountain, and that's when the landslides found them there. We thank God that they are here alive, they are still alive, and we're very happy. But the rains were so much that it really scared some, even our farmers. They thought that we couldn't buy their coffee. They thought that we couldn't make it, but at the end we made it.
Yeah, it's been, yeah, every season throws its own challenges, and you think, okay, we're ready for any challenge this season, and then you'll get a curveball. And yeah, certainly this year was rain and landslides. I think we've got some reflections from Kenneth again in Sippy, just to share his thoughts from how things went over there.
My name is Bukosa Kenneth, the overseer of Zukuka Bora project in Sippy. First and foremost, let me take my greetings to our main buyers in Australia, the 5 cents roasters, and their buyers. However, who takes time to buy that coffee, it counts a lot back to us here in Uganda, most especially the farmers who receives a fair price. Let me call it the highest price in the place. At first, we began this project in 2017 with 30 farmers. Now we have spent like 3 seasons, but it is just amazing because as per now, we have over 500 farmers and many are yearning to join the group, which is real like an exciting development project in the area. Back here in Tangwen village, people are giving testimonies like farmers can take their children to the school so they can afford to pay school fees. They can manage to feed their families. They can buy clothes. So Zukuka Bora has been an amazing and excitement project here on the mountain. So we really love Zukuka Bora. We love our buyers in Australia.
Oh, so that was Kenneth from up in Sippy Falls, and yeah, really great to kind of hear some direct feedback from him about how things are going. Sounds like it's all great up there, which is really awesome. And you know, obviously, like this harvest, this is the first one that Five Senses has featured. You know, it's tasting really great, really unique, and that unique offering, I think, you know, talking with Dave and Ivan before, is actually a really strong point for differentiation for the farmers at the region, that they can put out something exciting that we all enjoy drinking. It's kind of a strong kind of position to be in. So, yeah, obviously, Dave, you know, lots of things that have kind of brought us to this harvest and this point now. And I know, talking with you in the past, and I know with Ivan as well, you guys have got this huge list of plans and ideas and ambitious thoughts that you want to do. So can you just quickly, what are some of the top things in this next harvest that I think is actually about to start, or you're very shortly about to start? What are some of the goals that you've got for this harvest, and you know, what are some of your dreams for the next couple of years?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I think obviously there's no getting away from the challenges around COVID at the moment, and so we're trying to see that as an opportunity here in Uganda to basically almost take breath, take a pause, and actually think, okay, what do we need to kind of set in place to lay a good foundation for our next stage of growth? And so even now, as we speak, there's work going on to improve our infrastructure ahead of the new season. But one of the things we've really highlighted as a team is to really get to know our coffees better. I think as we've grown perhaps almost too quickly, I think there's areas where we need to catch up. And I think us getting a good knowledge of our coffee, how it tastes, how the different experiments affect the final cup, is really important. So I think we're very excited to taste the new arrivals that will be coming in later this month. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is to really develop our in-country roasting business. That's something that has really taken off as well, and it's exciting to see Uganda, which is traditionally a land of tea drinkers, gradually kind of appreciate, you know, their own coffee, which is so good. And so off the back of that, we've bought a roaster. We have a small roastery, and the plan is to really kind of grow that side of the business too, so that Ugandans themselves can enjoy their coffee, but also to really allow us to impact different areas of the value chain and to provide opportunities. Again, it creates more jobs, it creates more skills. And, you know, why should you guys have all the fun roasting and brewing it over there? Yeah. You know, like let's have some more fun this side. So that's one area that we're excited about growing. Yeah, so that's our kind of key points for now, I think. Yeah,
that's awesome. Look, I mean, you know, some big and some small projects there, like lots of different things that you're diving into, and it's all pretty exciting. I mean, we're certainly keen to keep tasting the results out of that and keep in touch with what happens this next harvest and all of the developments and what showcases at, you know, further afield. So it'll be a great opportunity to share it with everyone on this call as well, and I'm sure Sam will be getting in lots of things. I know they've got a few different lots for people to check out as well. So yeah, it's really great to be able to share it around. Dave and Ivan, like, thank you so much for all of your time and your generosity sharing your knowledge, and of course these delicious coffees. We really appreciate you dialing in and letting us know a little bit more about it, how it all came to life.
Yeah, and just huge thanks to the whole team here, the Five Senses and Commonfolk and all our friends. Thank you for your interest and for this brilliant event. We'll take all these stories back up onto the farming communities in the mountain. I mean, there's a real pride, definitely, among farmers knowing that their coffee is being enjoyed, you know, even with the community name on the labels. So we'll be taking, you know, all these stories back up. And yeah, please keep enjoying our coffee.
Yes, thank you very much once again for actually really giving us this humble time of yours and allowing us to interact with you, passing our feelings, what we go through, what we're enjoying here, and we look forward of doing the best, and looking forward to seeing Nicole and Ben also here in Uganda.
Yeah. Yes, it will be definitely our pleasure once all of the restrictions open up. We're going, Nicole, we're going. And look, Sam, as well, thank you so much for all of the personal insights that you gave in terms of, you know, the experience of visiting Uganda. It was great to kind of hear about, and as we kind of touched on earlier in the piece, you know, supporting projects like Zukuka Bora and the emergence of like a specialty coffee kind of not so much a region, but just that specialty coffee drive definitely is the work of more than one roaster, any one roaster. So it's great to be able to kind of collaborate with you on bringing these coffees in and celebrating them with coffee drinkers here. And yeah, thanks for all of your time tonight.
Yeah, no worries. And yeah, thank you to Five Senses. And we're just really excited to see more amazing roasters partner with Zukuka Bora, and to help develop it into one of the premier coffee producers in the world. You know, like here's to a world barista champion making a coffee that's from Uganda, Mt Elgon, Zukuka Bora. You know, I know that it can happen, and I believe it's going to happen. And you know, I really appreciate being involved in an amazing community like this, and it's fantastic to kind of get online, you know, even in lockdown, and share these stories with everybody. So thanks to Five Senses and obviously to the Zukuka team. It's a really great initiative, and, you know, hopefully the coffee just keeps getting better.
Yeah, I have no doubt that it will. Look, thank you everyone who's joined us online. It's been a great time to be able to talk and taste these coffees with you. Feel free to drink up a little bit more as it's still available, and the recording for the discussion will be up hopefully later in the week. Thank you all, and good night.
Yeah, I think if anything, it will be the particular, I mean, obviously the extended fermentation, but I think the particular climatic conditions up in Sippy. I mean, as Sam mentioned at the start, it can be 10 degrees cooler there in just because of altitude, and then at nights it is genuinely cold. I say as a joke, it's the only time I ever wear like a sweater is when I'm at Sippy at night, and it is genuinely cold. So I think maybe it's the slow drying. These coffees can take, particularly the naturals, they can take 30 days or more to dry, and I think that length of time probably just gives that even more time for the seed to take on the flavors from the cherry. Full time, as in through the year, we have around 12 people. We'd love that number to grow, obviously. In the season, that number rises to about 100 people. And I think, again, like I said, we'd love to create sort of more secure jobs through the year. One thing to say is that one of our real goals is to promote people from within the company rather than necessarily bringing in outside expertise. And so we're always looking to kind of bring new guys in each season and promote them each year. So yeah, and like I said, that's been one of the most exciting parts of seeing women and men really grow, take on management roles, and then being able to bring in more young people from the community. So yeah, and so I think we're only set to grow on that. I'm not really sure if I'm allowed to say this, because Uganda is a very conservative tea drinking country, but I actually miss proper beer. So yeah, that's one of the things I really miss. Obviously family. So I'm here with my wife and 3 kids, and we all miss sort of wider family. We were planning obviously to go back this year just for a visit, but that's been sort of cancelled with the situation as it is. So, but on the whole, it's honestly it's a lovely place to live, and we're among really good friends, and yeah, it's a beautiful place to visit. So all I can do is encourage, whenever situation stabilizes and when borders reopen, please, you know, anyone that's listening, you're welcome to come and visit and see what's going on.
To you, Dave, from Adam Marley, he has said, try the Bush Pig Backpackers in Kololo. Pretty good craft beer.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I will.
That's a great question. If you'd asked me 2 seasons ago, I would have said they're perfectly suited for espresso. That medium acidity, sweetness, and body, I felt just lended itself to that brewing method, and that's how we were predominantly serving them. But in the last couple of years, just the quality and the clarity has meant that I find them really, really appealing across basically all brew methods. In fact, I would go out on a limb and say that compared to some origins, they're almost some of the most versatile coffees that I have. Tonight I'm drinking Clever Dripper, so it's like a bit of a hybrid between, you know, kind of like a full immersion plunger and then also pour over with a paper filter. And I just find that, you know, there's no wrong way to drink them. In particular, I probably don't throw too much milk at the naturals. I just really appreciate the boozy fruitiness black. But the Mbale washed, like, genuinely, you know, try it whichever way you want. I don't think you can go wrong. That the characteristics that it displays means that it lends itself to espresso all the way through to the most delicate brew methods like pour over. So yeah, it's fairly versatile, I find.
You know, we've labelled the Mbale lot is the AA. And so, Dave, I don't know if you and Ivan are, you know, how you're utilising that classification method, but often kind of that's obviously talking about a size and a grade of coffee.
AA basically refers to the largest coffee seeds or coffee beans, and then we have single A, B, Peaberries, C, and then undergrades. So yes, at the milling and grading stage, all the coffee is separated into those different grades, and yeah, some, again, it seems to be personal preference when it comes to roasters. Some like particular grades. Some people particularly like the AA or the Peaberry. Some roasters just prefer everything to be kind of thrown in together. But yes, I have to say it does cause us a bit of a headache here in terms of getting the coffees out. Maybe rightly, the export authorities here are very, very strict on the grading system, but it means if you're literally 0.5% out in terms of the grading, they will push you back to the mill and you'll have to regrade.
Very challenging.
Yeah, Ivan knows that
I
very
experienced it, and it was really so challenging the way that take back to the grading machine, and it was really challenging. But really, that's the process here. Because unless you do that, you cannot export it out.
And interestingly enough, something that we noted through our quality control over the 5 harvests was that screen size didn't have a huge impact on the quality of the cup. In fact, we found one season that the bees, which are the smaller beans and usually maligned, were actually cupping by far and away the highest. And so we were one of those pain in the bum roasters that requested that Dave and Ivan actually maybe try and combine some of the lots, because from our perspective, we were getting more character in the cup by, you know, roasting all of the bean sizes together. And that's counter to some roasters who like to try and keep bean size uniform. But the proof is in the pudding, and we really felt that the complexity was enhanced by blending them together. And that might lend itself to the different sizes and the kind of what you're experiencing in the roasted beans there, Keith, as well, is that Zukuka Bora only produces a small amount of coffee comparatively compared to some other exporters. And so their methods sometimes might lend to what seems like ununiform beans, but the quality won't be there'll be no detriment to the quality because they're paying a lot of attention when it comes to cherry selection and the other parts of the process, whereas screen size is one of the very last things that sort of impacts the coffee. Yeah.